Welcome to the 2025 Economic Depression and Preparation Channel. I'm your host, Tony. Thank you for joining me on this Monday, February 25th edition. Please be sure to hit that like button or subscribe if you haven't already. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for all your support. And we're going to get through this together, as always, as we always have as Americans. And we're going to continue to follow the story here as we get closer to the end of February into March. Beware the Ides of March. Isn't that what Shakespeare said a long time ago? And here we are. On CNBC.com, they're reporting that February's consumer confidence posts, quote, biggest drop since 2021 and latest sign of slowing economy. Now, I don't know if how many of you guys remember, before the elections and before everything began, people were optimistic. They were saying that the Bitcoin was going to go over above 150,000. They were saying that gold was going to go up to 4,000. They were saying that the Dow Jones was going to get above 50,000. Now, maybe all of that will still be true, but we're seeing less and less job creation and more job destruction here in this sign of slowing economy across the board, across all sectors, from the private sector to the public sector, small businesses, independent contractors. We're seeing a slowdown here. So now, this is nothing we haven't seen before. Obviously, in the 1980s, we had a huge recession back then. Many of you guys remember back then you couldn't get a job. I mean, everything was closed. It was a huge recession. And just recently, 2008, 2009, we had a big recessionary drop. But this one is different. This one has a different feeling to it because there's so many underlying factors, especially high debt levels, both nationally and individually. We don't manufacture anything here in the U.S., as many of you know. And so that's going to take years to bring that kind of manufacturing back. Even if we do get into some type of technocratic economy, so to speak, or digital economy, it's going to take years to bring all that kind of productivity back. So you can see here that many Americans are feeling the pinch here, and we're trying to find ways to cut, but many Americans have cut out different things. You know, some have adopted the minimalist lifestyle, quote unquote. Others have cut out different bills like, cable, or maybe reduced to Roku or some other type of means of getting your internet. Other people have cut back on vacations and purchases and other things, discretionary spending things. But Americans are worried about inflation because 12-month inflation expectations jumped up to 6%. And so inflation is likely to be a big factor in this economy. Another thing is, will Trump and Doge mass layoffs provide the biggest job cuts, trigger the recession in the U.S.? Is all you need to know. This is an Economic Times report here. And, I applaud on one end. Many people I've read in the comments, and many people on YouTube are applauding the efficiency aspect of this economy, of the cuts that they're making, trying to, make sure that we're spending the money in the right places. But is it too much, too little, too late? I mean, we've had years, at least 60, 70 years of spending, whether out of a war or before a war or in between, by everybody. I'm not even getting political. This is Democrats, Republicans, everybody, independents, everybody's spending money, but we just don't have the manufacturing. We just don't have the type of jobs, the high-paying jobs here in America since the 70s, since we've had that boom where we had high-paying jobs in the actual middle class. Now we have sort of a hybrid class where people are getting where you fit in, and we just don't have the high-paying jobs, or the middle class to support this kind of spending anymore. And even if we did have the spending money, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the things. There's other countries that are ahead of us in terms of infrastructure, obviously China, Singapore, Japan, Korea, you name it, that are ahead of us in that aspect. And so will these job cuts, will the economy ever be the same here? And with the federal workers, being cut, that's not unprecedented. That happened during Clinton's time as well, as we know. But this is different. This has a different feel to it because this is like a dismantling or a rearranging of certain agencies or departments. And then on top of that, the private sector can't absorb all of these workers if they were to make all these cuts, because the private sector is not really hiring that much. I mean, people say, go to the private sector, you should be able to handle it. They're not hiring as much as you think. Google, Apple, Facebook, Meta, Twitter, Twitter they started out with that. They cut a lot of people too. So there's a lot of things that we have to consider here with these so-called mass layoffs that are happening in the U.S. economy at a time where prices are rising, and at a time where people are wondering, well, look, we want to work. Most Americans want to work. I put that out. We have 165 million Americans out of 350 million Americans who are eligible to work, right? That means over 18 or over 16, no record, ready to work. Graduated or not graduated from college, ready to work, whatever industry you're in. So that's a fact. I believe all of us want to work. The question is, can we get a high enough paying job in 2025 to be able to handle rents that are over between the average rents between $1,500 to $2,000, $2,500, car payments or average car payment is over $750 for a new car. Maybe you can get a used car for about $450 a month payments on that, depending on your interest rate. But things are high, so that's the problem that many Americans are facing. And so less jobs, less spending, no problem there. Americans are used to cutting back. The problem is that the economy, the $15 trillion U.S. economy, depends on spending. 70% of it depends on spending. So how are they going to make up for it? That's one question that a lot of people are having. Now, this is interesting. On Axios.com, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people are talking about this date, February 28th. I never heard of it. They're saying it's going to be an economic blackout date. There's a grassroots movement calling on all Americans to abstain from shopping with major retailers on February 28th, the last day of February, as part of an economic blackout, quote unquote. So this economic protest comes as many everyday Americans struggle to keep up with the financial landscape. High housing costs, like I talked about, surging egg prices, like I talked about last video, and stubborn inflation. So let me know in the comments, are you participating in this February 28th economic blackout, that's protest? Now, as I speak today, the Dow Jones was actually down today a little bit, and also Tesla stock was down today. Ironically, it was down as, a couple of Doge workers were fired, and they protesting, in response to what's happening with everything in Washington, D.C., I guess. So let me know, are you going to participate in the February 28th economic blackout? That means no Amazon, no Walmart, no Best Buy. And that's going to be the companies that they avoid in addition to other companies. And so what is the goal? Why are they doing this? They're stating a clear message saying that we have the power, the group says. This is a quote what the group says. It's not what I say. This is what the group says. Quote, they said, for our entire lives, they have told us we have no choice, that we have to accept these insane prices, the corporate greed, the billionaire tax breaks, all while we struggle just to get by. So I guess this is like a digital tea party, if you will, a Boston Tea Party, a digital Boston Tea Party back in the day. So I guess you can say this is like putting your money where your mouth is, but just be careful because, like I said, I don't want anybody to not, if you're going to participate in blackout, obviously get the essentials, food, water, security, water. I don't want anybody starving themselves and doing something crazy because, these big corporations are well ahead of us in terms of, resources, both economic and strategically. And so anybody participating in this, just make sure you cover the basics, pay your mortgage first or whatever, rent before you participate in these. But obviously, it is a good idea to show some type of pushback. And I think it's great if they do that, not just in February. I mean, try to do it as much as you can. The minimalism lifestyle is what's going to save you from the system, at least partially. Everybody it's hard. That's what I tell people when you see these YouTube videos and they're saying the prepper videos and they always say disconnect from the grid and from the system. Well, that's easier said than done. And eventually, and essentially we're all connected. We're all interconnected in some way, in some fashion. So we need a community and we need each other to, you have certain skills that I don't have and I have certain skills that you might not have, but we need to bring those together to be able to succeed in certain parts of this game that we call the American game. So that's why I just wanted to bring that up here as well. Just keep that in mind. But I think it's a good idea. So with this going on, what do we have looking forward to as we move forward into closer and closer into March? Well, number one, inflation is going to continue to rise. I predict that it's going to be between the real inflation is going to be between 12 and 14%. Now, the inflation numbers that you get on your television next month is going to tell you that inflation is around 4.5%. Possibly, okay? Unemployment is going to rise. Now, that's just not because of what's going on in the federal jobs with D.C., but that's because nationwide, if you look at it, even in the private sector, people are struggling. You see in the comments other people saying that you can barely get a Walmart job or a job that pays enough above $30 an hour or $40 an hour to be able to live in these type of cities, not just high cost of living cities that we all think about, like San Fran or New York or D.C. or L.A. We're talking about, regular cities. So that's something to keep in mind too as well. I also predict, the third thing that I predict is that there's going to be a belt tightening in terms of spending with the states budgets and the local cities budgets, municipalities budgets. Watch for that as well. They're either going to try to raise some kind of taxes on you, either through car tax or some other type of tax, gas tax, or utilities to go up. Look for that to happen too as well in the summer. You'll see your AC bill. Your AC is going to be going up because of the cost. They're going to say it's because they want to improve infrastructure. Like Bill new electric wires or whatever, but it's going to be because of this pressures right here on this economy. Tax revenue is going to be down because of all the vacant commercial real estate. Have you seen a lot of the vacant commercial real estate in these mid-sized cities, suburbs? Everywhere you see it's release, and nobody's taking these office buildings up for sale. So let me know what you think in the comments. God bless. Thank you for joining me. I'll talk to you again later on this week, Thursday, Friday, when we get the jobs report numbers at 8:30 a.m. I believe it is Eastern time on Thursday. So we'll see what happens then. Until then, God bless. Take care of yourself. Love you guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.